What it do is your man Savalas. The SABA checking in with Mark Clark in the Sports Parade Magazine podcast. Y'all go ahead and give him a call at 713-553-6370. Y'all hit me up at Savalas.com. He give it to you straight up with no chaser. Just how I like my yak. Keeping up with the Joneses, so I gotta get paid. Fresh car, hood, and got my arms straight.
Get ready, America. Up next is the fastest growing podcast in the nation, the Sports Parade Magazine podcast, heard daily by tens of thousands, hosted by the one and only Mark Clark, the man with a New Orleans accent who gives it to you straight with no chaser. Damn, I love that Mark Clark. Give him a call, 713-553-6370. Email him, markclark@sportsparademagazine.com.
Everybody get up.
Good morning and welcome to another edition of the Sports Parade Magazine podcast for Tuesday, September 24th, 2013. You know that voice, you know that New Orleans accent. That's right, it's Mark Clark, your boy, that gives it to you straight with no chaser. Counting down all of the games this past week 3 in the NFL. A lot of surprises, a lot of movers and shakers, and some that just can't get off the ground. But we're going to break them all down for you. We're going to talk about the upcoming week and some other things in the world of sports. But we want to thank all of our great listeners and sponsors for the Sports Parade Magazine podcast. Without you, it wouldn't be possible. Now over 45,000 listeners strong. That's right, 45,000 listeners strong. Counting the fastest growing sports podcast in the country. Just fantastic. Great to have that. Great to see that. We appreciate it, along with all of our great sponsors like LeBeur's Casino. That's right, LeBeur's Casino, Lake Charles, and the new LeBeur's Casino app. That's right, there's an app for your smartphone. You go to your app, My LeBeur's Casino, LLC, Lake Charles, and once you download it, they'll give you a chance to win a free buffet, along with all of the great, wonderful things that you can get with the My Choice Rewards. And don't forget, this weekend, that's right, this weekend, September 29th, win a Ford of a F-250 King Ranch and a share of $45,000 in cash and bonus rewards. The entries will take place from 4 to 7. That's right, 4 to 7, September 29th. Remember that, 4 to 7, this Sunday, September 29th. Go over there, watch the game, do a little gambling, get some great food, and have a chance to win a Ford F-250 King Ranch and a share of $45,000. Remember, those entries are going to be drawn from 4 to 7. Make sure you get them. And remember, if you go to play today or any day and any Tuesday in September, you get 7 times the entry forms for that Ford 250 and that chance at $45,000. And remember, every Thursday this month in September at My LeBeur's Casino, Lake Charles, you have a chance with your My Choice Rewards to get either $25 or a free buffet or $5 in bonus rewards. Remember, there's only one place to go. My LeBeur's Casino, Lake Charles. My LeBeur's Casino, Lake Charles. Well, let's get down to the first game. The first game we're going to break down. The Saints, 3-0. 3-0. Crushing the Arizona Cardinals, 31-7. Man, this is the first time, 3-0. Don't want to jinx it, but 3-0. The first time since the Saints won it all and won the Super Bowl in Miami that they started off 3-0. That's the last time that they started off 3-0. That's big news. And we had our special correspondent, Ty Green, in the locker room after that big victory, that crushing victory over Arizona. Because if you watch that game, Arizona went right down the field on the first drive, first offensive series, boom, 7-0, and they said, the defense is slipping up. Something's not quite right. But I'll tell you what, the rookie Kenny Vaccaro at safety, along with that defense, has really stood up. That Rob Ryan defense has really stood up. And Rob Ryan pointed out Vaccaro in the offseason, saying that he's never seen a rookie really grasp everything that he's trying to implement. In fact, he's put more on Kenneth Vaccaro than he probably has on any other player. And Ty Green asked Kenneth Vaccaro just about that.
I mean, during OTAs and minicamp, I think I just picked up the playbook well, so he understood that he could put a lot on me. And I'm glad he's pushing me. My coach in college really pushed me in a lot of positions, so I'm glad it's continuing in the NFL.
Boy, I tell you what, he's being pushed. He came up with stop after stop and a big interception. Also, Malcolm Jenkins. Malcolm Jenkins has really come on this year, and he's flourished in this Rob Ryan defense. And Ty Green was in the locker room, asked him what was his impact on the game and how did he feel that game went.
Man, it seems like because of the fact that defensive line has risen to the occasion, it allows you guys to be more easier in the flow.
Oh, yeah, definitely. We got a nice picture back here in the secondary. If the ball's not coming out quick, usually the quarterback's getting hit, and that makes it easy for us. We can cover early and cover tight, and then, like I said, if he has to hold the ball at all, our D-line is getting there, and we're not covering all day. So, and they're also doing a great job holding up in the run. So we can continue to do that, get pressure on quarterbacks and affect them. Then you start getting those interceptions like we had late in the game, where you get bad throws and tip balls. So it starts with them and obviously trickles down throughout the defense.
That's the key. That's the key, because the difference in this defense the last 2 years and this year is the turnovers. They don't have the talent, the physical talent, the speed, or the size to say be just a dominant force, say a Baltimore Ravens of 2000. But what they have is the ability to turn over the ball, bend not break, but cause the turnovers in crucial times, and that's been key to this rise and the surprise in the early season stand-up performance by the New Orleans Saints defense. And most of the credit has to go to Ryan, because let's face it, that's basically the only difference, with the exception of a player here or there, or a rookie like Kenneth Vaccaro. That's the big difference. And right now, they're able to put the pressure in that defensive line. Let me just say, I told you at the beginning of the year, I think Cameron Jordan is going to be an all-pro. I think he's been waiting to bust out on the scene. I think the switch that they did to the 3-4 has really helped him flourish. And Junior Gillette, I tell you what, he can bring some heat. Very often, I think he's been underrated and hasn't had his chance. And I think through the change, through injuries, through him being a little bit healthier, I think he's been able to flourish. And once you're able to get that pressure up front, it always helps. On the offensive side of the ball, they just keep rolling. They keep rolling with Drew Brees. Jimmy Graham is just a beast. So about the only thing that could slow them down would be injury. Jimmy Graham is just right now, if you have him, whether it's in fantasy, whether it's in real life, in terms of in the NFL, he has such a decided advantage over just about any other position player right now. If you're talking about, there are many great quarterbacks, there are many great different position players, but in terms of being so far head and shoulders above the field, particularly with Rob Gronkowski coming back from back surgery and the multiple forearm breaks, right now there's nobody playing better than Jimmy Graham. And for his sake, I also hopes he stays healthy, because it's been rumored that the Saints are beginning negotiations, because that contract is up. He's finally coming out of that rookie contract, and he's going to get paid. He's going to get paid, because if Gronk is getting $45 million extension, that's going to be at least, at the very minimum, the starting point for Gronkowski. And in today's salary cap age of the NFL and the overwhelmingly higher paid quarterbacks, I'm going to tell you right now, this has to be the year for the Saints. This has to be the year, because just like Drew Brees' contract was signed, the $21 million, whatever the reports are that he's making, there had to be tough decisions and players that were let go, because it's simply you can't afford to keep everybody. Well, guess what? Once this contract is signed, and hopefully Mickey Loomis and company can structure it so that it's cap friendly as much as possible, and money can be, diverted to later years in his career. Once that contract is signed, going into next year, looking forward, even though you don't want to look too far ahead, there's not going to be a great chance that we're going to be able to keep a lot of the players that we have right now, particularly veterans. So you're going to be in a situation where you have to really maximize the potential that you have this year. They're on a roll. They have Sean Payton back. We have the Miami Dolphins, surprise team of the league maybe, at 3-0. Monday Night Football is going to be rocking. It's going to be rolling once again. The Saints' home field advantage. We talked about this on Sunday Morning Journal with Harold Clark at the beginning of the season. It's going to be key that we hold service at home, that we win at least 7 of the 8 home games, because the road is going to be tough. If we can do that and squeeze out 3 or 4 on the road, we already got one in Tampa. It's going to go a long way deciding how far and if we're able to make the playoffs and how far we're able to go. Because I, for one, I don't want to face teams like Seattle at home in the playoffs. You really want to play at home. And right now, the division is ours. We have the early lead. We have basically a 2-game lead on everyone in the division. Let's keep it rolling. But it's always going to come down to how balanced can you also be on offense. Because right now, it's simply Drew and the wide receivers on the offense and Jimmy Graham. We're still unable to run the ball. I've gone on record over and over. It's just a massive failure in terms of the performance of Mark Ingram. He can't cut it now. He had a toe injury, so he wasn't even activated for the game. And, grumblings about he wants to be traded. Come on, man. Come on. What do you mean you want to be traded? There's no market for you. There's no market. I think if that indeed was true, I think that's more of a sign of, the feelings of a Heisman Trophy winner and his black backup in Cleveland being traded to Indianapolis. I think that's a sign of, well, I'm supposed to be the Heisman Trophy winner. I'm supposed to have the success in the league, and it just hasn't happened. But he needs to just concentrate, and when he gets his opportunities, maximize, make the most of them. And don't complain about the blocking or a call here or call there. Hit the holes, hit them hard, break a tackle. One of the great stats that you'll see is yards after first contact, and he's near the bottom in terms of yards after first contact, in terms of his ability to move forward, move a power forward, break that initial contact to make some positive yards. Let's face it, Pierre Thomas is pound for pound much tougher. Darren Sproles, much tougher. But as great as Darren is, I would hate for us to lose Darren, given the injury natures of running backs in this league. I would hate to lose him going forward because we're running him a little bit too much. And he's tough as nails and he can run it right up the gut, but I would hate to lose him for any significant time. That would extremely be a detriment and an albatross around this offense going forward. But, everything's rolling, but there still are some warning signs. The running game, when we won the Super Bowl, when the Saints won the Super Bowl, that running game was good. And it simply has not been up to par. So right now, that's something that you have to look at as Saints fans, as NFL analysts. You really have to look at that running game to get it up to speed, up to par. Otherwise, the 3-0 can really disappear really quickly because teams are going to start to feel you out. You're not going to surprise anyone anymore. Last year is over. We came out. We've jumped on people early on. But guess what? The honeymoon is officially over. This is the NFL, baby. The NFL. And it's a rough and tumble sport. And speaking of rough and tumble, and that Arizona game, man, I tell people, football is a rough game. It is. It's just like, there's nothing nice, particularly if you've ever seen a game from a sideline point of view. Well, Arizona safety Rashad Johnson's middle finger is the same size as his index finger. But guess what? That wasn't the case when the Saints kicked off against Arizona Sunday. After the game, when he went to take off his gloves, he found the top portion of his finger missing. Damn! The top portion of the finger was missing. And guess what? He didn't know it. He pulled off the glove, and guess what? The tip of the finger came off. That's just how tough that guy is. And it's a rough sport. It's a brutal sport. People don't realize under the piles, grabbing hold of somebody, the force, the pressure it's a lot to deal with. A rough game on the court, and a rough game on the field, and a rough game on the sideline. Sideline, you know, they say bad things are good things come in threes. Where, you know, Pam Oliver, legendary sideline reporter, great of Fox. In the preseason, she was hit in the face while doing a report about football, where everybody got a good laugh at. She was a trooper, and she stayed to finish the game, but people didn't realize she suffered a mild concussion from that football hitting her in the face. If that wasn't rough enough, she's covering the Green Bay game, and she's doing a sideline report, and the pregame entertainment was the Ohio State marching band, and she almost got mowed over by the trombone player and had to duck as he was swinging, and the band was marching towards her, oblivious to the fact that she's standing right there doing her job, doing a report. Pam, baby. Pam. Bad things come in threes, baby. I don't know what's going to happen for you for that third one, but let's hope and pray that Pam Oliver kind of stays out of trouble, because I'd hate to see her have anything else happen to her. But she's a true professional, so we had a little fun with her. Okay, let's go back to the NFL. It started off last Thursday with the Chiefs and the Eagles. Chiefs beat them, and I mean beat the Eagles like a drum, 26-16. You see, the thing about this Chip Kelly offense that we talked about, they can go on and on about how innovative it is, how many he has record number of offensive plays, and how he wears out opposing defenses. All true. But at the end of the day, what you have to understand, what you have to realize is that NFL offenses are not cut out for that type of workload, that type of constant no rest, that type of hits. We talked about it. Michael Vick, a small guy, small dude. Deshaun Jackson, a small dude. Same thing with LaShawn McCoy. We saw LaShawn McCoy go down, thought he was done for the year. He came back in the second half. All of these guys are literally one hit away. Now, even with all of this, everything that's happening, they still lost the game. Wasn't even close. Turnover after turnover after turnover. A lot of it probably, in my opinion, is that rush to get up to the line, to catch that, to get that those extra series and those extra plays. Also, the fact that a lot of times when you got people like Vic, they're trying to get away from the pressure very quickly, or in many cases, that line is trying to get into their blocking formation. So I think down the line, if Chip Kelly is going to be successful, if Philadelphia is going to turn their season around at 1-2, they're going to have to go to some semblance of, sometimes we're going to run this play after play after play, this quick system that was so successful in college but may not be successful in the pros. For one thing, they don't have 80 to 100 guys on a roster like in college that you can intermix and change up and run in and out of that. It's basically the same guys, and they simply cannot hold up, particularly when you also have a lot of the backups playing special teams. So that's something that if you're going to see a lot of those Eagle players look forward to dropping like flies with injuries. It happens even in the best of circumstances under a regular system, a West Coast system. So I could imagine with this system Chip Kelly has put in place, if I could see the injuries really happen. Also, the Ravens finally got off the snide. Man, they beat the Texans 30-9. Let me tell you something. I told you this last week on the Sports Parade Magazine podcast. I could see this coming like a freight train. Like a freight train, all aboard, like Charlie Wilson says. I could see it. Because the Texans, in my opinion, you also always need a bit of luck in every NFL season. It's not simply coaching and talent and preparation and execution. There's also some luck involved. The Texans got lucky the first two games. Did not look good offensively and gave up too many big plays defensively. Same thing played out in this game. Matt Schaub, always been a knock that he's just a manager of the game. He's a manager of the game. He simply is not managing the game very well. Not only is he not making plays, crucial turnovers in all three games this season. They're lucky that they're 2-1. Very lucky, because given the fact that they took a ferocious comeback in the fourth quarter on opening night against San Diego. Tennessee, another comeback in the fourth quarter. This could easily be an 0-3 Texas team. But you see, therein lies the rub. You know, these teams, like the Texans, like the Atlanta Falcons, as we'll discuss later, they want to get all hyped up and say, you know, we're going to the Super Bowl. We're Super Bowl contenders. It's our time. If it's your time, shut up and do it. Like Bo said, just do it, baby. Just do it. Don't talk about it. Be about it. And that's the problem. Too much talk about what we should be. Now, you have Andre Johnson starting to break down. Yes, you have the emergence of DeAndre Hopkins, but we talked about the track record of NFL rookie wide receivers and 1,000-yard seasons. Not very good. Few and far between. There are many less opportunities for a wide receiver to blow up in that first year than, say, maybe a running back. So if Andre Johnson's going to be hurt for any amount of time, you know, first he had a concussion, then he had a bad shin bruise that took him out of the game. And we talked about this in terms of NFL teams or really any sport. When you have a great player, we already talk about every player, it's dog years on their body, but when you have a great player like Andre Johnson of Texas, it's years that are wasted, that you don't make the playoffs, that you don't contend for a Super Bowl. Those years tick away. And when you finally are at the proverbial doorstep to grabbing that brass ring, or at least you think you are, all of a sudden that player starts to get injured, starts to get hurt, because guess what? Those years have ticked by. You've wasted those years. Now, it remains to be seen if that's going to be the case with Andre Johnson and the Houston Texans. But I tell you what, when you start seeing injury after injury and struggles like they're doing now, that could be the case. And Matt Shaw, their fortunes will rise with Matt Shaw, whether they're able to do anything. Because guess what? Right now, Aaron Foster is really not having a dominant season. That offensive line is not being dominant. And that defense, all the big names like J.C. Watt, they're simply not being dominant enough to stop teams. The Ravens finally had some big plays. They had a punt return for a touchdown, kickoff return for a touchdown, interception by the new linebacker that replaced Ray Lewis, who was inducted into the Ravens Ring of Honor. He returned for a touchdown. Terrell Suggs is finally healthy. So that defense can be good, but that defense won't be dominant. Offense, they're still struggling. Bernard Pierce filled in for Ray Rice and wasn't any great shakes, but was adequate enough. They simply don't have the weapons that they need at the tight end position or that second receiver right now to be able to say, hey, you know, we can really be the Ravens of old. I think this is a mirage. I don't think you'll see the Ravens being dominant like they were against the Texans. The Vikings and the Browns, this was the biggest upset of the week. The Browns winning 31-27. You know, they trade away the franchise running back that they picked with the third overall pick just a year ago to the Indianapolis Colts. And you were thinking that Brandon Weeden, their 31-year-old second-year quarterback, because he was so old coming out of college, he's hurt. So you basically say, you know, they're giving up on the season. But, you know, the funny thing, an organization can give up on the season in an attempt to get a first-round pick or the number one overall pick. But at the end of the day, players with heart are playing for jobs. They're playing to impress. And guess what? They played their hearts out. They put up more points. They were more fluid. And they were a better team. But don't get it twisted and think, hey, that's right. They don't need what they thought they needed. They don't need this. They don't need that. I think this is simply a mirage. They have a great defensive front. I told you Hayden, the quarterback, is probably the best cover corner in the league, shut down. But I don't expect the Browns to be putting up 25, 30, 35 points per game anymore. The Vikings, it's AP and that's it. It's a whole lot of AP and that's it. Christian Ponder, I told you, is not an NFL quality quarterback. And the really bad thing about it is, like we talked about Andre Johnson, AP not having a chance to compete for a Super Bowl, not having a legitimate chance. Yes, they were a playoff team last year, but that team was basically carried on his back by AP and wasn't going to be any threat once they got in the playoffs at all. Wasn't going to be a threat. And that's the case this year. How many hits does he have on his body? How many big runs? And once he goes, that whole thing is really going to implode in Minneapolis. The Panthers, division rival the Saints, 38-0 over the New York Giants. You know, you never count the Giants out. They've done it again and again and again. They're one of the few teams that were 0-2 that went on to win the Super Bowl. 0-3, there's a less than 6% chance that you're going to make the playoffs, but, you know, there's always a chance, and one of those teams that have done it in the past was the Giants. But the difference between those Giants teams and this Giants team, this edition, is those teams still manage to put up points and have good defensive efforts. I mean, it wasn't any a situation of being embarrassed. They would lose games in funny ways. They would lose games for being lackadaisical. When you lose 38-0 against a Panther team that wasn't putting up a lot of points, that was no great shakes themselves, one of the bottom feeders in the league, and you put up 38 points and then you're shut out, and you're Eli Manning, a two-time Super Bowl quarterback MVP, something is not right. I think they've quit on Tom Coughlin. And how long do you go? How long do you go down the path of letting this thing implode, particularly with the Super Bowl being in New York this year and the whole prestige and embarrassment factor? How long are you going to let this situation go? Because when you have players of the caliber of a Victor Cruz, of a Hakeem Nicks, of an Eli Manning, there's no way on God's green earth that you should be shut out 38-0. That simply should not happen. Something is not right. Something is rotten in Denmark. And I know that they have trouble running the ball. The offensive line is atrocious. But even with all that said, you shouldn't be losing games 38-0. And it makes me think that one of the first coaching casualties of the year could be in New York, despite the fact that Coughlin has brought 2 Super Bowls in the past 5 years. Unless they turn around quickly. They've been known to do it, and he's been known to pull it out when all seem lost. But I don't know. I don't know right now if it's going to happen, particularly losing a game like 38-0 against the Carolina Panthers. The Bengals, man, they beat the Packers on the funny side, y'all, 34-30. Green Bay, you know, they have discount double check Aaron Rodgers, all the great, the Jordan Nelsons, the James Jones, all these receivers. You know, they have depth at running back. You get the rookie in there, Jonathan from UCLA, and he's just running that ball. He's just doing great as a third string. He's getting his chance. And they're trying to go for it on 3rd down or 4th down and 1, and trying to get in a position to maybe ice the game, run out the clock, or get a field goal, and boom, he fumbles and it's returned for a touchdown. Bengals win 34-30. Devastatingly ways to lose games. You know, the Packers were the one that lost that game with the replacement reps last year when the guy caught the ball, but they said it was a simultaneous catch, and they gave it to the defense and said it was an interception. So over the last 2 years, the Packers have had a lot of bad luck in terms of what they're able to do. The Bengals, I'll tell you right now, the Bengals have the talent on defense and offense to go to a Super Bowl. It always remains to be seen whether they're able to do it, whether they're able to put it all together throughout a season and do it. You know, this game, that was, you know, like we said, you got to have a bit of luck. That was a bit of luck, but also it points to talent. The big thing with the Bengals is Andy Dalton. Andy Dalton, not an elite quarterback, more along the lines of a Matt Shaw. And can that average to middling quarterback come up like a Joe Flacco did last year? Because for whatever you want to criticize Joe Flacco, he rose above that middle of the road manager of the game. He rose above that Alex Smith type label that's put on those type of quarterbacks, and he just was a stud. And it remains to be seen if they're able to do that with Andy Dalton, because rest assured, they're not going to do it if he doesn't rise to the occasion. I don't care how good that defense is. They are helped the fact that Giovanni Bernard is just a dynamo. He's the guy that's eventually going to be that full-time 70% running that ball, because he's just dynamic out of the backfield. He's just dynamic in terms of his speed and his playmaking ability. And along with Green, along with all the weapons they have in that defense, but it still is going to be centered on Andy Dalton if he's able to do it. The Packers, they keep talking about every year how great the Packers defense is. I just don't see it. I think they get a lot of sacks, but as a whole, they're not a good defense. And you can't be considered good when you're giving up 25, 30 plus points per game. I don't care what kind of stat you're looking at. If it don't pass the eyeball test, baby, you ain't good. And if it don't pass the eyeball test. Cowboys, how about them Cowboys? 31-7 over the hapless Rams. Let me tell you something. If they don't win this game, if the Cowboys don't win the division this year, with Philadelphia struggling, with Washington winless, with the Giants winless, they'll never win it. It's just laid out on a red carpet. This cherry, this whipped cream, this everything you could imagine. It's laid out for the Cowboys this year. You know, the funny thing about the Cowboys, they can't run the ball any this year. DeMarco Murray has struggled, and I'm a DeMarco Murray fan. Struggled, couldn't run that ball. But for whatever reason, whenever he faces the Rams, he just goes off. He becomes a superstar. He had almost 200 all-purpose yards. He just did the damn thing. The Rams, I'm going to tell you something. Sam Bradford is, like I said, the last of those big-name, big-time, when they got all of the money, the $120 million quarterbacks. Now these rookies, rookie number one, particularly the quarterbacks, they don't get all of that money that they used to get. He's the last of that breed. The Rams basically traded the RG3 pick because they said they have their franchise quarterback in Bradford. But when you get 7 points, and that 7 came in garbage time, you know, it begins to wonder, you know, what's going on. You know, they put some talent at wide receiver, the rookie Austin, they have Givens. It's just not working out. Something is not right. I think that really with Sam Bradford and that Ram offense, the problem is coaching. I think they have some good defensive players. I think they've upgraded the defensive backfield. The problem with the Rams is they're still stuck on this, let's huddle up, you know, snap the ball with about 1 or 2 seconds left. I think they would be more suited and better suited if they were playing an up-tempo style offensive like a Chip Kelly, believe it or not. Not all the time, but a system kind of like that, kind of like with Peyton Manning when he's constantly, come on, let's get up to the line, let's catch them off guard. I think the type of talent and the type of offensive weapons and the type of quarterback he is, I think he would be suited for that. Look for another coaching change in St. Louis because they can't continue to struggle. The Cowboys, they're playing well, and this is without Romo. Romo got hit opening week on those ribs. Everyone says they weren't busted, but you can see he's just simply not his normal self, but he's still been able to produce. He's getting Des Bryant involved. Once again, Miles Austin is hurt with those hamstrings, but he's been hurt the last 3 years, so it remains to be seen how that factors out because Des also has a history, even this early in his career, of injuries. But I'll tell you what, he's extremely tough, Tony Romo. And if he's able to get really healthy and they have some luck with the schedule like they're having in that division, they could indeed finally fulfill the promise of Jerry Jones and go to the playoffs because they haven't done it in a long, long time. The Lions won against the Redskins. I think that's the first time in about 20 or 30 years they've beaten the Redskins. But they did it, so it doesn't matter how they did it, but they did it 27-20. The Redskins, man, RG3, I don't care what you say, whether it's psychological, whether it's physical, simply just not quite right. You know, this game basically was lost when he was scrambling. He had a big scramble, but instead of sliding, he goes down awkwardly, face first, ugly looking slide. Some would say maybe he's trying to protect his knee, didn't want to take the hit or whatever the case may be. But he gave the ball up when he hit the ground. And when you're sliding face forward, there's no down by contact. So that ball was free, and basically it just turned the entire game around and gave the game to the Lions. The Lions did it very impressively without Reggie Bush. Reggie, as I like to call him, one finger in church. I'm hurt again. It was out with this mysterious bruise. It's always a bruise or something more serious. At least it's not anything more serious, but he didn't play. But Joy Bell is such a dynamo in terms of his ability to pound that ball and get the tough yards, and also out of the backfield. He played terrific, and they didn't miss a beat. Tell you what, I've always said it, the Lions have very good talent. If they could just get the balance with the running and the passing, if Matthew Stafford could be more of a manager and not a gunslinger, because I don't think he has that type of talent to be the gunslinging type of quarterback. He's not the super talented Brett Favre type. But if he could tone it down a notch, I think this Lions team could go very, very far. But there's so many wild cards on that team, from the quarterback position, from Sue on the defensive line. A lot of question marks remain. As for Washington, I don't know what to say. You know, I think I don't believe in Shanahan. I don't believe the way he handled RG3. I don't believe in the system that he's running. I don't believe the way he's brought RG3 back. If you're going to bring RG3 back, let him be RG3. Let him turn the corners. Let him run that run option the way it's supposed to be run. Either he can do it or he can't do it. And if he can't do it, he shouldn't be in there. Because right now, when you're trying to make him a pocket pass, this pseudo, sometimes I'm going to run, it just looks awkward. It looks out of sync. Pierre Garçon is too talented to not have the targets and the receptions. It's throwing everything off. The defense is just horrendous. It's horrendous. And I think Jim Hassel's going to pay the price. I think if they lose next week, there's going to be at least a defensive coordinator change with the ex-Saint coach Jim Haslett being let go. And at the end of the year, if this continues to spiral downhill, look for Shanahan, despite all of the big money and contract that was given to him by Dan Snyder. Look for him to be let go. But I will say this, and also to put sort of the responsibility on RG3. RG3 simply is doing too much. Too many commercials, too many interviews, too much talk, too much this new media age where you're just an instant superstar, despite the fact that you really haven't really done it on a consistent basis to be considered a superstar. So I think he needs to tone it down and really concentrate on either getting healthy or doing the things that needs to be done. Everyone needs to get on the same page, because right now it's spiraling downhill out of control. The Bucks, man, oh man. The Patriots beat them 23-3. Patriots undefeated. Patriots not that good of a team. They're doing it with smoke and mirrors and the legend of Belichick and Brady. Let's face it, that's it. Because they're not getting the production from the running back position. We know that Gronk, maybe he'll be back this week. He's been out. No wide receivers to speak of. The rookies, Tompkins, they simply dropped too many passes, but they're still getting it done. The Bucks, you have one of the great young, like a Ray Rice type of running back in Tampa Bay. You've spent all this money on Vincent Jackson at the wide receiver spot. They simply are not getting Josh Freeman. It's time for a change. It's either going to be Josh Freeman or it's going to be that head coach, that college head coach, Schiano from Rutgers. Or it's going to be both of them, because you can't keep going down this path. You can't have all these high round picks you've traded. You've built up this defense. You've spent money on the offense. You've gotten Revius at the cornerback position, which for the life of me, I don't understand. I think that was an overreaction to being in the division with Drew Brees and Matty Ice. A really overreach, overgrab they didn't need him at the time, given the salary cap and the space that he takes up. Whatever the fact, too much invested in this Buccaneers team to be this putrid, to be this bad. 23-3 against a not really dominant Patriot team. Not good at all. Chargers lost 20-17. The way the Chargers always seem to lose. Some boneheaded play, personal fouls, just in not getting the timely first downs, all of the talent, Ryan Matthews, all of the talent, Antonio Gates, all of the talent, Vincent Brown, but they simply, for whatever reason, Phillip Rivers, hothead, arguing with referees, go on and on and on. The offense struggling the last 3 or 4 years. They looked better this year. They've looked better, but simply not up to par. The Titans are just under that, under that pariah Greg Williams, have really tightened up that defense. They're just a tough, hard-nosed team. Chris Johnson, while no breakout games, he's running the ball hard, even though they're pulling him on passing downs and they're pulling him at the goal line. At the goal line, I can understand because he's kind of a slight of stature, but not involving him in the passing game. Not involving him in the passing game with Locker, I think, is a big mistake. I think Tennessee could really surprise some people, but I don't think they're going to do it if they don't fully invest in Chris Johnson. And I don't mean on first and second down, but as a 3-down back, because I think Chris has that type of talent. He's shown it. And I think I don't know if they're trying to punish him or trying to prove something by pulling him out. This Tennessee team is not that good offensive or defense to afford that. As for the Chargers, the way Danny Green said it, baby, they are who we thought they were. They are who they thought they were. Saints' next opponent Monday night, the Dolphins, upset the Atlanta Falcons 27-23 in the waning seconds of the game. Falcons, the news don't get any easy. You already lost 3 players for the year. News today that Steven Jackson, the running back that they invested a lot of money and effort in the offseason, is going to be gone at least another 4 weeks, which is basically a month. Maybe coming back in week 8, pushing it maybe week 7, but you never know. Like I said all the time, teams lie about these injuries. Because when he went out of that game, a week ago, and speaking of Steven Jackson, he really wasn't hit. And they said he's gone out with a thigh injury. And I kept saying, I was tweeting it, I said it on the Sports Parade Magazine podcast, how is Steven Jackson going out with a thigh injury and he wasn't hit on his thigh? It just doesn't make any sense. And people don't miss multiple games with thigh injuries. Well, the news is that it's a hamstring. Even when Steven was young, okay, and he's a great player, borderline Hall of Famer. If you want to argue that, debate that point, he's a great, great talent. But even when he was younger, he always had some type of injury, some type of ailment. So that's not a huge surprise to me that he'd be out. But, they've been able to, come across that. Jacquez Rogers was good. They were able to put the two-headed monster together in the backfield, and they ran the ball. Roddy White, I still don't understand why Roddy White is out there. I really feel, really truly in my heart thinks if that high ankle sprain is that bad and you're only getting 2 catches for 30 yards, 2 catches for 13 yards, you're basically just a shell of yourself. I don't think you're helping anybody by being out there, and I think it's a disservice to the future of this team this year, which they have the Super Bowl aspirations just like the Texans. But like I said, you can't just talk about it. You have to be about it. And they're just not getting the job done. They're not doing a good job in Atlanta. I tell you what, with that new stadium coming on deck, $1 billion stadium coming on deck in a couple of years, and all of the expectations of this year, they better turn around like next week. I don't think they can afford to start 1-4. Or that'll be a situation where you're looking at the coach and saying, what's going on? Tony Gonzalez has not been involved. I don't believe for a minute that Tony Gonzalez was talked back to coming back one more year, that he's just lost it. They're just simply not getting him involved, which is very odd considering the fact that Roddy White has been up to the par. Thank God for Julio Jones, because if Julio Jones hadn't been out there and performing like one of the best wide receivers in the league, it would be really a long 0-for-3 start for the Atlanta Falcons. But we'll see if they're able to turn it around against the New England Patriots. That's going to be a tough game because Belichick and Brady, despite the talent, despite the lack of defenders, they always seem to find some way to win. The Dolphins, man, this is a team, you look at them, you say, well, there's nothing great shakes, Mike Wallace, the deep threat, he really wasn't involved. But there's a lot of great players. Not great, but very good talent on that Dolphin team. They're good at stopping the run. They're pretty solid. They're pretty solid defense, given these new rules that favor the offenses. I tell you what, that rookie Lamar Miller, I think he should be running the ball all the time. The Saints are going to really have to watch out because he can really go off and influence and change that game Monday night in the Dome. He's just that good. But the coach still has this kind of platoon system with the backup running back. I think it's doing a disservice because obviously Lamar has the speed, the talent, everything like a Giovanni Bernard in Cincinnati to really influence this. And once he starts gashing and making holes, all of a sudden it's much easier to get that ball deep to Mike Wallace, and he likes to run those go patterns. So a very, very dangerous team that the Saints will be facing Monday night in the undefeated Miami Dolphins. The Jets, man, we laughed all summer about the Jets, but some kind of way, some miracle way, the Jets are 27-20. Like we said, you got to have a little luck. You got a little. Santonio Holmes was heard from. You know, he may not be heard from the rest of the year, but he was heard from. Chris Ivory, ex-Saint, hurt, out, hamstring. Not a surprise, Chris. Just a cat that's cut out for 10 carries and boom, IR for 3 weeks, a non-dress out for 3 weeks, then come back and do it again. Just doesn't have what it takes to be a starter in the NFL in terms of his health. What can you say? Geno Smith he just played tough, and the Bills, it was a good game. E.J. Manuel, who would have thought that these two rookies would be influencing and dominating this division? But I tell you what, with the Bills, when you talk about the Bills, C.J. Spiller, massive disappointment. I don't know what's going on with that offense and that scheme in Buffalo, but when you have so much invested in and so much potential in C.J. Spiller, and now he's back to platooning with Fred Jackson, 34-year-old running back, really, really weird. There's too much offensive talent on that Buffalo Bills team, and it amazes me that they lost this game. I think they had the better talent than the Jets, but the Jets always under Rex Ryan a solid defense. Also about that Bills team, the defense much improving. Above all else, the $100 million man who's way overpaid, Mario Williams. He of the ex of the Houston Texans. He's been phenomenal early in the year. He had 4 sacks already in one game. He's been playing lights out ball. The Colts, they put a beat down on San Francisco, 27-7. We said it before. Early on the Sports Parade Magazine podcast, I give it to you straight with no chaser, baby. I told you. If the 49ers defense, and it's loaded from the front four to the linebackers to the defensive backs, but if they're that good, why are they giving up all the points? And they've been giving up a hell of a lot of points this year. And once again, the Colts exposed that defense. Something is amiss. Something is not right. Harbaugh better get it together. Better go into his lab and come up with something, because right now they're just not playing. Now you have Aldon Smith going out to seek counseling after he was arrested the Friday before the game, 7 o'clock in the morning, headed to the 49ers facility, not only drunk but high on marijuana. So I think they're trying to do a preemptive strike by getting him help to keep him from being suspended by the league. But let me just say something about that. If indeed you were trying to help him and he's going into this counseling, quote unquote, with the air quotes, why was he playing in that game? Why was he playing? And people will say, a lot of the national network analysts, well, that's what you get paid. You get paid to play football. You're right. You do get paid to play football. But don't play a player. Don't play a player. And when I mean that, don't try to con me. If you're truly that concerned, Aldon Smith shouldn't have been in that lineup. If you're truly concerned that he needs to go into a addiction rehab facility, he shouldn't have been playing. Also, How can you put a timetable right out the box? Well, he'll be in there for a month. How do you know if you have an addiction to marijuana and alcohol and your life is spiraling out of control? By the looks of him, he looks pretty bad, but is able to play. If your life is indeed spiraling out of control, you're going to go in there not with the advice of counselors, not with the advice of therapists, not with the advice of the experts at the facility, but just say, well, he'll be in here a month and he'll be all right. He'll be able to come back. That's more concerned about the game, the wins and losses, than this actual player's health. So don't pretend, San Francisco and the owner, don't pretend in some kind of way you're concerned. But what you better be concerned about is Kaepernick. That boy has been exposed. You know, everybody gets their panties all wet. They get excited. Draws dropping. They get excited. Oh, Kaepernick, and all this great stuff. I don't care that the bar, Vernon Davis is hurt and he don't have wide receivers. If he's dynamic, as they say, if he can run the ball, he's a dual threat, he's this, he's that. That bar's been exposed. Tape is the great equalizer. They're game planning against this bar. They got his number. Now, I'm not saying that he won't, when they get some of these players back, that he won't come out there. But when you basically been shut out for 2 straight games with no offensive production, and you still got a Frank Gore that's still producing, that tells me you're not as good as people thought you were. This is the problem when we rush to ordain the next great one. We did it with Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson is benefiting from a great Seattle Seahawks defense. Russell Wilson hasn't played that well this year. I don't even count that game this past Sunday against the lowly, woeful Jaguars. Hasn't played that well. But we're so wet with excitement, this national media. Say, oh, Kaepernick, Russell Wilson, they're fantastic. They're good young quarterbacks. Give them 2 or 3 years to prove it. Prove it over and over. Andrew Luck has proven it again and again. Kaepernick and Wilson, not so much, at least not early in the season, particularly Kaepernick. Boy, you've been exposed. In that defense of the 49ers, you've been exposed too. Once again, you know what? It's that same Houston, Texas, Atlanta Falcons disease called foot in mouth, because they did all that talk about, oh, we're going to be a Super Bowl. We loaded with 49ers. But guess what? Guess what, Rise McCoy? I know you love your 49ers, but baby, it ain't happening. It ain't happening early in the year. Seattle beat the Jaguars 45-17. Man, I'm not even wasting no time on this foolishness. Foolishness. This is garbage. Garbage in the Jacksonville Jaguars. Pure garbage. Nothing to talk about, nothing to see. Sorry, MJD, Maurice Jones-Drew. You just had the misfortune of playing the bulk of your career with just a real stinker of a team. The city doesn't even want the Jacksonville doesn't even want the team. Look for this team, if ever they're able to build a stadium and get their act together in L.A., to be on the move to L.A. The Steelers, Sunday night, lost 0-3 to the Chicago Bears. What can I say? You know, Antonio Brown had a big game. They look a little bit better with Ben, but Le'Veon Bell is finally going to be able to start. But when you're 0-3 and now you're going across the water to play in England, man, it's gonna be really, really hard. This team just got old. They got old. You can't allow your team to get old, and that's exactly what they did. They let the team get old, and it's just come back to bite them, pure and simple. They don't have the youth and the talent, particularly on the offensive or the defensive line, to be a dominant team. Chicago, they just find a way to keep doing, particularly on that defense, creating turnovers. But a key cog, they lost their defensive tackle in the game for the year with a torn ACL. And when you lose that hub, that central force that takes up those double teams, that allows those linebackers to roam free, that takes double teams off those ends, it remains to be seen if that bad defense will be as good as they were. Matt Forte, he's just tough. He's the man. Trustman is putting him in better positions than ever before. But I don't trust Jay Cutler. Don't trust him. And I think Denny Green said he is who I think he is. And if he is, Chicago will come back down to earth. But we'll see. Right now, they're pretty much rolling. You heard me, Earl Ash? You heard me? Your Bears are doing it. Did you hear me? Did you hear me? Did you hear me, Lynn? Your Bears are doing it. But guess what? In a couple of weeks, it's going to be in New Orleans in the Dome, baby, in the Who Dat Nation. Finally, Monday Night Football. The Broncos just rolled 37-21 over the hapless Raiders. And let me just say this. Peyton Manning, as we close out NFL Week 3 of the Sports Parade Magazine podcast, Peyton Manning is indeed terrific, dynamic. I think he set a record. I think he only had 3 or 4 incompletions. He was just every ball on the mark. Touchdown after touchdown after touchdown. Everything is beautiful. But I'm going to tell you something. 37 years old. They're trying to say that he's better at 37 after 3 or 4 neck surgeries than he was when he was 25, 26. No, he's not. He's not. I think this league just gives Peyton Manning a little bit too much respect. I think like any quarterback, I don't care who you are, any quarterback, if you hit them in the mouth and you put them on their ass enough, guess what? All of a sudden, things are not as easy. And right now, I think people are scared to death of the great Peyton Manning. He's hitting the tight end. He's hitting Demaryius Thomas. He's hitting Wes Welker. He's hitting Eric Decker. I mean, it's just like everything works. It doesn't make a difference who's running the ball. They're just doing it. But I think they've benefited from a week early schedule. I think that's one. And I think, two, teams just show too much respect for Peyton Manning. And I understand he's great. I understand that the ESPN 30 for 30 are going to, this month, have the Manning move in the whole thing with Archie and Cooper and Eli. I understand all of that. Kumbaya, la, love it. But at the end of the day, you look at Peyton Manning, and what you can say is maybe the greatest regular season quarterback ever. But when it comes to the playoffs, Jim Moore, do you hear me? Playoffs! When it comes to the playoffs, his record is abysmal. It is. His one and only Super Bowl came against the Bears and Rex Grossman. When he went up against the Saints, baby, it was pick 6 to Tracy Porter. Saints win, touchdown, game over. Again and again, whether it was coming up short against Baltimore, whether it's coming up short against the Patriots, some kind of way, despite all the regular season success, despite all the regular season dominance, despite everything, the greatness that is Peyton Manning, it hasn't worked out in the postseason. So, it remains to be seen that at the age of 37, after 4 or 5 neck surgeries, is this going to be the year? Is this going to be the year that he's in a weak AFC, I may add, that is not as strong as the NFC, if he's going to be the man, if he's going to be the one that turns it all around, that turns his legacy around? Because guess what? If they don't go to the Super Bowl, it's a bust. I'm telling you right now, I don't care how many yards they're saying right now. He may shatter Drew Brees' record. He may go for 6,000 yards this year. I don't give a damn if he goes for 10,000 yards. It doesn't mean anything if it's just in the regular season. And like I said, too many organizations, too many teams, they just have so much fear of Peyton Manning. The way to beat Peyton Manning is to ball up, man up, hit him in the mouth. Hit him in the mouth. Play him straight up. Don't be so fearful. He's just a man, baby. And he's been exposed over 14 years in the postseason. You can argue all you want about that, but that's a fact, baby. That's a fact. He's not Terry Bradshaw with 4 Super Bowl rings. He's not Joe Montana. He's not Steve Young. You want me to go on and on, baby? I can't. He has just as many rings as Joe Flacco, just as many rings as Drew Brees. So don't give me all that, the greatness, the wizardry, the mastery. We'll see. We'll see how it plays out. Because right now, when it's all gravy, baby, everybody's standing up. Everybody's all pro. But when it gets rough, when it gets tough, we'll see. Because right now, they haven't been hit. They haven't been punched in the mouth. They haven't faced adversity. And I'm talking about the Broncos. But like Mike Tyson, that great poet said, everybody got a plan till they get hit in the mouth. Did you hear what Mike said? Everybody has a plan till you get hit in the mouth. And right now, Peyton Manning and the Denver Broncos have not been hit in the mouth. And I, for one, Me, Mark Clark, I want to see that, baby.
Everybody get up.
Get up on that. Remember, it's your boy with the New Orleans accent, Mark Clark, in the Sports Parade Magazine podcast. We'll be right back at you tomorrow with another edition of the Sports Parade Magazine podcast.